What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Summit Life, and welcome back to my shop here in Park City. You guys could tell very easily by the intro, we are in dead of winter here. We've had so much snow this winter, and I am so glad I bought this snowmobile this year and not last year. Last year was pathetic for snow. We have so much snow here. It's incredible, and I'm having so much fun, and I cannot wait to bring you guys today's video. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have been trying to film this video for you guys for the last 2.5 weeks. The issue comes from working on these little projects. There's so many little odds and ends that I need to order online. So once I get one shipment of little teeny odds and ends in, I realize I'm missing this one little teeny part. Then that part comes from China. It takes a week and a half. And the next thing you know, it's been 2.5 weeks and I'm trying to film this super, very simple, easy video. But today we're going to be working on the OBS Ford. There's something about this truck that bugs me every single time I drive it, and we're going to be fixing that and upgrading it. But before we work on the truck, we're gonna be working on the snowmobile. You can already tell that it's torn apart. There is the headlight and the hood and then the side panels. It's all torn apart. We're gonna be working on that, and all the parts are right here on the table. But before we go over all the parts we're going to install today on the truck and the snowmobile, I want to introduce today's video sponsor. And today's video sponsor is our SummitLife hats. If you guys have not had a chance to buy these, we are running out very quickly. In fact, we only have 8 left, and this is one of the 8. But I want to make you guys a good deal. If you guys go on our website and order a hat today, one of the last remaining 8 before we change up the design, I think, I'm going to throw in a free pair of our socks that match our Gallardo and a sticker for you guys. So our video today is sponsored by our merch. And now for all the parts we're going to be installing today. When I put these parts out on the table, they look fairly insignificant and kind of lame because they're small parts on a big table, but I promise you they're very important. Starting off with the sled modifications, we have an intake tube right here, a charge tube, and a small little vent. Now this looks pretty pointless, but it's integral to the fun I'm going to have on this sled. And then moving on to the truck modifications, the leather on my steering wheel is falling apart. So we're gonna do a complete steering wheel makeover with brand new leather. And I figured because we're going to be tearing it all apart, I'm going to be adding a heating element. So that's right, on my 1996 Ford F350, we're gonna be installing a heated steering wheel today. And like I said, I've been waiting to install this stuff on the OBS for weeks now, so I'm very excited to finally have a heated steering wheel. And I'm not 100% certain, but I'm fairly certain that this might be the first OBS truck with a heated steering wheel. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, let me know, but I think it might be the first, and it's actually a fairly simple install. I really want a heated steering wheel for those really early mornings when I go out to the mountain to go ride my snowmobile. It's gonna be really nice to have nice toasty hands. But that leads me to the snowmobile, the modifications we're gonna be doing to the snowmobile. I have learned on the deep powder days that going up a steep incline, like a really steep hill climb in deep snow, this tends to bog down. And I've pinpointed the culprit. This intake tube right here, look how soft that is. Now on full boost, that thing is sucking in so much air that intake tube collapses. So it's a very simple fix to this nice silicone stiff tube, and it should solve the issue, no problem at all. Now this little teeny vent, I told you it's important. If these intakes get packed full of snow, which happens on powder days, now it'll be able to pull air from here as well, which won't have any snow on it. So I'm gonna have a much better time in the deep powder days, and it's gonna be very fun. These modifications to the snowmobile are gonna take no time at all. It's just a couple hose clamps and a couple holes we have to drill right here in this plastic piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys down on a tripod and just get this taken care of. And just like that, the intake tube is replaced, the charge tube back there is replaced, and the vent is installed. All that's left to do is install the body panels, and that's super easy. Boom. all done and ready to ride. Now that the sled is done, we can move on to the OBS project. I cannot wait for this. We have all of the heated steering wheel and new leather there on the table. I wanted to give you guys a look at what the steering wheel currently looks like. You guys can see it's falling apart. I have the foam in the innards of the steering wheel hanging out, and I can't stand this. And then also the stitching is kind of coming apart on this side here. So we're going to be removing this leather here, adding the heated element all the way around, wiring it through the steering wheel, and adding new leather. I cannot wait. This is gonna be sick. Now I apologize in advance. The next minute or two is gonna be me geeking out on my solution to wiring this thing through the steering column. I'm pretty stoked I was able to figure this out. The other day I spent a few hours Googling, and I found out that the 90s F-150s came with airbags, and the F-250s, 350s, 450s and up, the diesels, did not come with airbags. Now the steering wheel I have in the OBS currently is an F-150 steering wheel. I think it looks way better than the stock F-350 steering wheel. The issue comes adding the heated steering wheel. The issue is running wires through the steering column. The steering wheel turns, and wires don't really like that. So in my research, I found out that the 90s steering wheel clock spring, the wiring for the airbag, fits exactly to this steering column. This steering column right now only has 3 wires running through this mechanism, and the F-150s from the 90s have 5. So 2 extra cables, these 2 right here, are going to be powering our heated steering wheel, and it's basically an OEM replacement for the F350 and 250s that adds a power and a ground wire through the steering column. I am so stoked I was able to figure this out. And if you guys are adding a heated steering wheel to your car, take a look at like the options, the trim options above your car or below your car, because they may offer steering wheel buttons that you can wire positive and negative through. I'm so stoked on that. Now we have the issue of installing all of this, and I don't really know where to start. So let me figure that out real quick. I figured first things first, we can hop back in the truck and actually remove the old leather and compare it to the new leather. It should be pretty simple, just cutting all these threads out and then peeling it off. Not gonna lie, that was probably the easiest part of this entire project, but let's compare this leather to the new leather. Wow, what a difference. This is the old ripped up leather, and here's the new nice supple leather. This is all shiny from 300,000 miles of hands. Now this is garbage. Now the most unfortunate part is this new leather is going to be the very last step of this project. I think the next step is pre-wiring all of my electronics and making sure they all work before I install them in the truck. Now I do have this new power distributor block, so this goes straight to the positive terminal on the battery, and then I need to find a ground, which goes right there. Then I need to wire in my relay, wire in my button to the relay, and wire my button to the Chinese wiring harness here. Now, if any of you are really intimidated by car electronics, I don't blame you at all. And in fact, I totally get where you're coming from. I've been working on car electronics since I was like 16 when I installed radios and subwoofers in my car and my friends' cars. So it kind of makes sense to me. But really my best advice is to take your time and test everything before you make a permanent connection, and you should be just fine, which is basically what I'm gonna be doing here. I'm gonna be testing everything, making sure it's all good before I crimp it all and make connectors. So I'm just gonna get the hard wiring taken care of right now. And here we are about 2 hours later with a way more tired Clayton, but a completed, well, 99% completed wiring harness right here. Like I said, I was kind of confident in my abilities, but this definitely tested my abilities. Let me show you really quick here. Here is our distribution block, which is fused. We have the power from the battery right here with a nice braided cable. Then we have our relay, which wires into that Chinese wiring harness with nice braids and quick connects and everything like that. We have our nice new aluminum button that lights up blue. And then we have our heating element, which goes on the steering wheel. Now, I do need to wire in the heating element with the clock spring, but I'm gonna do that in the car, and that's because we need to attach this to the steering wheel. So up next, let's grab the steering wheel. And we hop up in the truck. I've already prepped a lot of this off camera because it's kind of boring, but the airbag comes off with 4 nuts. They are 10mm size. And then the center bolt comes right off, and then the steering wheel pops right off. So I said at the beginning of this video that this was fairly simple, and I'm learning now that it is quite difficult actually. We have the steering wheel off. I'm going to be prepping this to run wires through the steering wheel. But up next we need to wire the new clock spring into the steering column. This part itself is fairly simple, but yeah, overall this project is pretty intense, but I'm 99.999% sure we're going to make it work. So we need to mount this like that, kind of. Oh yeah, just like that, and we need to screw it in and then send these wires through the steering column, and then these go to the cruise control, horn, and heated steering wheel. All right. Well, wiring in the new clock spring went really smooth, like almost too smooth, but I'll take it. It ended up being one of the easier parts of the whole install, to be honest. Up next is the actual like steering wheel part, where we need to mount the steering wheel and then like glue the heating element, this thing. We need to glue this to this and then run the wiring. Kind of tricky because you only get one shot, but I think I can do it. But before we jump back into the truck and mount the steering wheel, I do want to mention some stuff I did off camera just because it was really, really tricky and it was hard to get footage of. But I went ahead and drilled a hole back behind the horn button. Up in here, I actually made a mistake, and you guys can see the little hole right there. But I popped through the backside right there. You guys can see the hole. And then I made a channel that goes all the way up to the top. Now that is to hide the wiring, because any wiring that actually sits on the steering wheel will be a bump behind the leather, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna run the wiring in this channel right here and down in through that hole, and it will pop out right here with this other wiring and be absolutely perfect. So I did that off camera, but I wanted to show you guys before we go back in the truck. Okay, so my very first time installing a heated steering wheel element was, I would give myself maybe a C-. I could definitely improve. You don't really want wrinkles and fingers like that, but since it's my first time, I'll give it a pass. I got it trimmed down here at the bottom. I got the power cables on each side. All I gotta do is tuck them in that channel I made, and then we're ready for the leather. And by installing the leather, I mean actually installing all of the electronics and wiring. That way we can test it to make sure that it actually heats before we put the leather on, because you guys remember, leather is the very last step. We need to go ahead and install my little makeshift circuit board here and all the wiring. It's not terribly difficult, but will take me about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll catch up with you when this is all installed. Everything is now installed in the truck. All the wiring connectors are connected, and I hid the switch right there. See, it's on right now. I turned it off and on. The good news is the wheel does get warm. Now the bad news is it just barely gets warm. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to like pump way more power through this like heating pad, or get a new heating pad, because this is like just like lukewarm, and I want it to be like a hot steering wheel. So we do have a heated steering wheel, but it's more of like a slightly warm steering wheel, but I'll take it. Now the very next step is to wrap the steering wheel in leather. Finally, new leather. This part should be fairly easy. We just stretch it around and stitch it up. Okay, you guys, I'm all done, and usually I don't toot my own horn, but I think I did pretty good on the stitching. I've never stitched a steering wheel before. After a quick YouTube tutorial, I think it turned out really, really nice. Now I do have the heated steering wheel on, and it is just barely slightly warm, so that might be something I need to address in the future, but we are done. Man, working on the snowmobile and the OBS today sure took a very long time, but I had an absolute blast, and I was so grateful I was able to bring you guys along with me. The only thing left I have to do is clean up my entire wiring mess. When I wire stuff, I sure do make a mess. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I'm gonna enjoy my lukewarm steering wheel. Hopefully in the future I find a better solution, and I'll update you guys. We have more videos coming for you and more updates, but until the next one, peace.